Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
All right, here we go again. Buckle up, rough roads ahead. Getting online was kind of crazy. I had to order a couple of mouse or mice before I could get online, even before I could look for my missing mouse. I had a spare mouse. There's systems like this every so often. I had a spare mouse and it just wasn't working. I kept trying to make it work. Either I don't think I have the wrong dongle, but I could. And it's not a dual, it's not a Bluetooth. It was just a cheap mouse I bought as a spare because I can't find my main mouse. I can use like my main mouse on 3 devices. It's a Logitech and it's pretty good, but it likes to hide. And that's their curse. Curse from me broadcasting this, curse from this, curse to that. And it manifests in that mouse and it disappears. That's why I have a spare mouse. And I can also use my phone as a mouse. But the system was like, no. And believe me, you're doing this too, but you're not knowing what's all really happening because you won't even remember to use your phone. And the reason I didn't use my phone until I ordered the mice is because God said no, because it would cause a shift that we couldn't, or we don't want to have to counter. So again, that's how life is constructed, and that's all that's really happening. You go to point A, you go to point B, you go to point C, but they block it all, and then they say, "Well, that means we're powerful." No, it means you're with Satan because Satan's the one that does that. So I have some information that I should put out. I was just kind of speaking it into the air so it would go into the mind, and God was there, of course, and their listening devices are there. So here's this idea. I mean, there's a lot going around in the mind about tactical operation, what's correct, what's wrong. Uh, but why? Well, I know to do that, but you didn't do that. I guess it was proven yesterday, and I guess somebody may have said something in a local PD. So the idea is this: when I speak about something, it's again that psychic thing. So what we're doing is shoring up the process, the SOPs, tactical operation, so that we don't have another Kim Porter. Now that happens, or the need to do that, and that happens based upon a multitude of things, which includes you doing the wrong thing, police officers doing the wrong thing, law enforcement doing the wrong thing, because it chips away at success. I mean, your life maybe seems successful, but law enforcement starts imploding and losing way. But again, of course, you are self centered and you say, well, my life is great. I'm doing good. But again, if you're working for Satan, will make sure you're the last person that loses anything. And then it's too late to fix anything. And of course, you're ignorantly backing the wrong things. What was that? Ignorantly backing the wrong things. I had a little shift there in the sound. So we know that we should shut the doors now. We want to keep the doors closed and we're searching again, the idea is, and again, it was not every scenario is this good. I mean, they had a lot of vehicles last night, and that helps with having people to do various things. They may have been in a house, they may have been somewhere, I don't know. It was a vehicle, two people behind the vehicle, which that was perfect, sitting on the curb. That's perfect. That's kind of what we want. I can't tell you whether they're handcuffed or not. But when I went through, the doors were open, and most likely, I think what's going on here is my noise gate is set wrong. So I'm going to go pop into here, this thing here, go to the advanced settings. It doesn't look like it should be getting in the way at all. Hmm. Turn it down a little, I guess. So let me get this. Looks like this is not. There it goes. All right. So if we have people that are spare people, you can make them vehicle guards to make sure nobody accesses that vehicle. I have no idea what's going on here, and maybe it's just in my headphones. Maybe I don't know. I have to look at the audio. Looks like it's fine. So again, this is coming up because of possibly that officers all across the country. Again, it's not just about one traffic stop. Are leaving vehicles accessible to what is this? What is this? Accessible. I don't know if it's coming out in the audio or not. They're leaving vehicles accessible to people that are either on the curb, standing next to the vehicle, behind the vehicle. Again, setting up a Kim Potter type of thing. Because that's actually where it went wrong. They let him get back in the vehicle. And why did they let them? Because it wasn't structured right. Again, the first thing is, when you pull them out, bring them to the back of the vehicle and then shut the door if you can. Because every second counts. If they had the door closed, they may have had sufficient time to put them down on the ground, and then nothing. She wouldn't have had to pull the taser or the gun and think it's a taser. She looks healthier actually to a certain degree when she left. So again, I'm not saying she's an alcoholic or anything like that, but those are issues that attack law enforcement routinely. Also, the stress. She just maybe should have retired already. If she could have, I don't know if she could have. But the last photo of her when she was going to depart and she served her sentence, she looked pretty healthy compared to going in. And that day, I mean, we do have the video prior to any charges. She just looked a little off compared to where she was. So again, it may have saved her life. I don't know. Again, we don't know those type of things. And again, I'm not the type of person to say bad things are good because they do good things, right? Because generally bad things don't need to happen for good things to happen, but it may have triggered something in her life. She's got a good husband. I think she put in for retirement. I can't remember if she resigned and is getting retirement or not. My only thing was she drunk that day? That was my big one. That was a big one. Right? It just doesn't seem normal. Now, there was no evidence, I think, that came up of her being an evil person, just wanting to kill people and make a cover story. Or I think we would have heard about it. So again, the time is right to make sure the procedures are right, that everybody's adhering to something. Again, if you do any type of tactical operations, military operations, you'll realize that when you have one person, you do it this way. When you have two people, you do it that way. When you have three people, you do it that way. When you have 4 or 5. So again, the idea is the same thing. When you have more people, utilize them in a way that works. I mean, they, people stand around a lot of times. Officers stand around a lot of times at these scenes, and their position makes no sense. You could do the same thing and just take a position in the right location. So during a raid, the same thing. It's coming up that we need to make sure that we have the vehicles covered so they don't get in those vehicles. Now, why all of a sudden? Because something is sensing, a spirit is sensing, maybe God's self is sensing that there's going to be an issue in the future. They're trying to get it, headed it off at the pass. So just make sure the person doesn't get back in the vehicle. What I think happened is they searched the vehicle and they had just finished searching the vehicle. And, or I don't know, maybe they pulled them out at gunpoint. I don't know what happened. Again, I wasn't there, but the vehicle doors were wide open. So shut the doors, pull them to the rear, which happened, and they even had them sit down. However, again, the chances of them getting away are probably slim to none. But we don't want them. We don't want them to access the vehicle and be able to pull away. Essentially, there was a scenario that may have worked because an officer was watching them, and he looked pretty tall. So I think he was tall. He probably would have been able to outpace them. But if they, and I don't know if they were cuffed or not, but if they went to that right door, now the left door being open in that scenario may have paid off because the officer could just sprint to the. But I guess the officer would have been probably, if the officer was quick, the officer would have probably ran after the person, and they could have ran in the vehicle and then shimmied over to the left side. Who knows? But again, it's not likely, but it happens. So again, don't be the one in 100,000 where that happens, or 200,000, or 1,000,000, whatever it is. So when you go in on the raid, make sure somebody is eyes on the vehicle. Maybe somebody that used to play football. You can tackle the guy or gal when they come out. But because we get into a scenario and they say, well, the shooting was justified. Well, yes, but there was a lot that could have been done to make sure nobody was able to access a vehicle. And then in law enforcement, you're not right for running into the path of a vehicle. I understand the concept, but if we teach a little bit more control, they get out of the way. Because what you're doing is you're creating a reason to shoot the person driving away. Again, I'm just telling you, your luck's going to run out on that, like it did before on other things. And I think now we're seeing less of it, where an officer steps in front of a vehicle and goes, "Oh, you're going to run me over." She was going to run me over. So the idea is to step away and get on the radio as quick as possible. That's the best thing. Or get in your vehicle if that's what you want to do. But the idea is to step away. But what happens if we put a vehicle guard out? And that doesn't happen generally. I think in that scenario, when I'm thinking about that house, there's a raid. They pulled up front. I have to look at the video again and how the person accessed the vehicle. I think they may have came out the back door and swung around the side of the house or something like that. But I can't remember. I have to look at the video. But there's certain ones in my mind where I conduct, maybe somebody else did too, but I conduct an after action review on it. And then so it sticks in my mind. There was something else that was very important. Yeah, I guess that was part of it. You could always pull a vehicle in front, and it doesn't have to be nose to nose if you feel uncomfortable with that. But anything we can do to immobilize that vehicle so you can, just reverse in and block the vehicle in if that's what you prefer. But that's the single best option. Yeah, if they get in there, it can smash around for a while. But again, the outcome may always be the same. It may end differently, but at least you had a plan prior to something occurring, standard operating procedure, you followed it, and, for what it was worth, you know, you prevented having to shoot the person, but they, created a further scenario where they were banging their car back and forth, and right. And that's part of it. Yeah, deterrence. That adds deterrence. The one, I can't remember what the after action review is on that one. That's coming up too. That's what's been coming up this week is the one in Oklahoma where the two officers were really doing the right thing and they were trying to talk the person out of the vehicle. And the person was armed and eventually shot and killed, I think, both of them. I have to go look at that. I don't remember my exact after action review on that, an exact scenario. There was like one thing on that one. But again, the idea of blocking the vehicle in. So can they actually get away? So that scenario happened a million times, but something caused the person in the vehicle just to leave the gun under the seat or in the glove compartment or wherever it was, or in their pocket, whatever it was, and you search, whatever you search, if you find the gun, whatever, right? So that scenario happens. So something again, the individual, whether they're willing to shoot a police officer or not, or that's multifaceted as to why and why not. But when you find a firearm in a vehicle that was not used, it may be a testimony to the person owning the firearm that they didn't want to use it on a police officer. Although you may have done something to deter it. So at that point, you look around at what transpired at that traffic stop. And then was there something that you could put your finger on that probably made that person think twice, such as last night, 4 vehicles. 4 law enforcement vehicles, I think, were at the stop. Right? So that can cause that. I'm a big fan of at least 2 people, 2 vehicles. 2 people is not as good as 2 vehicles. But again, 4 vehicles causes a deterrence to use a firearm. So you'll in those scenarios, you usually find the firearm, unless it's a suicide by cop thing. You'll find the firearm somewhere in the vehicle, and it stays there until you find it, or they tell you it's there because they're worried about being shot or something, or beat up, or whatever it is. I don't mean to laugh, but that sometimes that goes through their head, even though you wouldn't do that. That ends up in their head sometimes. So if they see you a certain way, you look like, oh, wait a minute, look, they put a person over here, they put a person over there, they shut the doors to the vehicle, they back the vehicle in, and the other one's, right behind. Now, in this scenario, again, that's another hard or difficult scenario. It's very, I guess that's the best scenario, actually. It's, again, another layer. And you can't do this at every traffic stop, but if you pull in behind their vehicle. Now, this is difficult if you have multiple people in the vehicle. Well, you should have a second officer watching the vehicle anyway. However, if you take the individual to the back of the police vehicle, and the police vehicle is pretty much bumper to bumper, a little space maybe, with the vehicle in front. It just depends what kind of stop it is. Right? You can, if it's a felony stop, you can pull your vehicle right in there and nudge them, and not have grandma yelling because you nudged her vehicle and she contacted her insurance company and all that. But because I was thinking, well, how do you get them behind the vehicle? But you take them to the back of the second vehicle, then you have a larger distance, and of course, make sure your vehicle is secured. Then you have a larger distance to their vehicle. Now, that could cause another scenario to crop up because they're saying, well, I can't move my vehicle, so I'm going to have to kill this officer to get the officer's vehicle, either move it or get in it and use that to leave. So again, you have to be careful when you start. When you start removing options then they might focus more on the officers. I can't remember the one in Oklahoma. What was the defining moment? I think they he wouldn't get out of the vehicle. That was the biggest trouble. And I think they went in to get him out of the vehicle, and that's when they got shot. So again, that was a difficult scenario, but I came up with something. And again, having a vehicle with takedown lights or something initially, you're not. Again, I don't know how your takedown lights are wired, but if you can make them adjustable, like 3 or 4 levels, that would probably work better for what law enforcement does. You pull in nose to nose, and everybody's got different equipment. I realize that, but you pull in nose to nose, and then you can put them in a dimmer setting, so you don't blind them completely while the vehicle in the rear is doing what it's doing. But yet the officer in the front can see in the vehicle perfectly. Again, different traffic stops require different approaches, and different levels of threat. I guess removing somebody from the vehicle can be very difficult. Uh, a lot of times, going back to my correction days, anytime that there's a need to lay hands on somebody, they'll usually call a lot of people in. So that's probably what they should have done. On the extrication, they should have had additional people. Again, the idea where that person feels as though a firearm's not going to work. That firearm may have been left under the seat or wherever, or he may have surrendered. So again, that could be policy, and it's subject to the available officers. However, if you have to extricate somebody, you might want to, say you make an all points call out to see if somebody will, uh, if there's people available to respond. I mean, there was officers there. 4 officers probably would have ended differently. And you see that. You see that. You see, in a lot of camera, you see when there's 4 officers, 2 on one side, 2 on the other side, and gun, boom, and you end up with the person with the gun being killed generally, but they get a better view of what's going on, and then practice the gun drill where there's a gun. That officers, again, the idea of getting in front of a vehicle, the idea of diving in further to the vehicle, and that may have happened in an Oklahoma scenario. I don't know. I have to look at I don't know if they have body cam or not. I can't remember. But the idea of getting away and just letting go, that's important. That's even important in investigation. People get too attached to their cases. I understand horrendous things happen. However, you can't get so attached to your case that you become a criminal, or that you make an unsafe thing go on. So you see it in law enforcement, the officer, the officer that I hate to laugh, but it just boggles the mind. He jumps into the vehicle, let go, step back, get on the radio. Well, both of them ended up dying. It was a big car accident. The officer made it out of the vehicle, but I guess he had internal injuries. So again, that officer would be alive if you just could let go and get on that radio. You're not responsible for what happens when somebody flees like that. But if it, there's conditions that you could cause that you would be responsible. So again, it's a fine line, and again, it's real time. It's not hindsight 2020. So there's a lot involved in what makes a mind forget or remember to do something. But again, if you train, if officers drive down the road and just quiz themselves on what they would do in common scenarios, such as the scenarios I'm speaking about, then their mind might remember it a little quicker, a little easier, because something's cursing you for all this to happen. And then what happens, you get frustrated and you want to do the wrong thing, and then that affects you. You don't get up for beating somebody up or making up a fabricated statement or whatever it is. It actually takes your intrinsic power down, and somewhere somebody's going to be killed. Because that's how it really works. But maintaining security to the level of no access to the vehicle is very important. And like I said, if you pull your vehicle in tight behind their vehicle, and then you pull them out of the vehicle, you pull them behind your vehicle, as long as there's somebody watching the other vehicle, that'll work better because it's twice as far to get to that vehicle. And that was the fatal, move, I guess, with the Kim Potter thing. He was only right behind the door when they were searching him. He should have been behind the vehicle, and the door should have been closed. And in fact, an officer should have been in front of that door if they had enough officers, and I think they did. Kim Potter should have actually, and again, she's stressed out. She's not thinking it's ever going to happen, whatever it was. But if they had shut the door and she positioned herself at that door, even if they searched him on the side of the vehicle, he wouldn't have got in the vehicle. In fact, he probably would have thought he wanted to run. Again, you're not going to be able to stop every scenario, but it's better that he runs than gets in that vehicle. So that would be the priority. And why is it a priority? And you already know that is because you're going to be dumbed down. Somebody's going to be dumbed down in the near future via metaphysics, which may cause stress in their life, may cause other officers to razz that officer into doing the wrong thing. That happens. Officers are crooked. They want to do their coworker dirty. And they'll do something to the coworker, and the coworker's mind will slip. So just keep the thought on how to secure the scene, the traffic stop, in a way, in a way that is the best that you can do. That's all anybody can ask. But in a lot of cases, you look at it and say, well, we can do better. And it's not a hindsight 2020 thing. It's next time we're going to do this and that, so that doesn't happen. So what happens is a year later, it starts erasing, because that's how metaphysics works when you're in an adversarial position. And there's devils on the other side, and devils that you work with that want you to fail. You just think they're a little bit of an a-hole, but they're devils. They'll kill you if they can with their wares, their satanic wares. Well, that's about it for now. Stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.